public than I am.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. It's Trisha Lee, and with me, as always, is my esteemed business partner, Laurier Liev, aka Larry Lever. And today, I know we did hang out not that long ago where I talked about the internet being the most disruptive technology that has ever hit the face of the planet. And I think I might have misspoken there because with what we're going to talk about tonight, I actually think it has a wider spread effect and is far more disruptive than even the power of the internet. And what our topic for today is, which you probably already know because I mentioned it in the link that I sent to invite you here, is genetically modified organisms, otherwise known as GMOs. And I just realized when we discussed having this topic as a disruptive technology that this actually affects a far greater amount of people than the internet does. Oh, we lost Larry there. Hopefully he can make it back on. Because this is technology that has been used to modify our food. And so there are a lot of people around the globe that actually don't have access to the internet. People like tribes and stuff in Africa and stuff that don't even have electricity. So I just left Amish country here in Ohio where people don't have electricity or the internet. However, I'm sure that if not already, in the future they will be affected by these genetically modified organisms. And the reason that I say that is because of Percy Schmeiser. So if you don't know who Percy Schmeiser is, I recommend that you get on YouTube and look up Food Inc. or Food Incorporated. It's a documentary, and they talk about GMOs, and they interview Percy Schmeiser, and he's actually a farmer from Saskatchewan, which is one province over from where we live in Alberta. And he was planting canola. His family had been farmers for generations, and they were very, very dedicated to creating the best possible yield and quality of canola crop that they could. And so for generations, they collected the best of the canola seeds to replant for the following harvest. And because, well, the way the story goes is that the company Monsanto has their own canola seed, and it's actually a patented seed. And so being that it's protected by patents and considered intellectual property, a lot of people argued, and there was a court case saying that seeds are like the gift of life and they should not be patentable. However, Monsanto, with their high-priced lawyers and basically endless budget for legal litigation, won the case, and they were able to patent seeds. And so because they had a patent on canola seeds, what had occurred is they ended up on Percy Schmeiser's property over there in Saskatchewan, and they discovered some of their patented canola plants growing in his field. And actually, the way that's kind of interesting, so the way they discovered that this patented canola was on his property is that he found it because he was out in the field and he was like, well, what's this canola plant? This doesn't belong here. This isn't my plant that I planted here. And so he contacted, I'm not sure if it was Monsanto or he contacted somebody locally there in Saskatchewan and said, hey, I got these plants on here that I didn't want here. And so they figured that either the seeds blew from a neighboring crop or they blew off of one of the delivery trucks. Somehow these Monsanto seeds blew onto his property, and excuse me, sorry about that. And so these seeds blew onto his property, and he had these weird-looking canola plants growing, and he had complained about it. And so Monsanto turned around and sued him because he had their patented canola seed growing on his property, which they were not a welcome entity in his field. And so he was appalled that they had sued him. But anyway, to make a long story short, he sued. He somehow, and yeah, he won the court battle. But in the long run, he lost. If you want all the details, like I said, go to YouTube and look for Food Inc. or Netflix might have it or somewhere. You should be able to watch that documentary. But long story short, he won the court. He won their court battle. However, at the same time, he also lost because although he didn't have to pay all this money that Monsanto was suing them for, they did stipulate that he had to destroy all of his heirloom canola seeds that his family had worked for generations to develop into the best possible canola crop. So he was pretty much devastated by that. And so because of that story, it really makes me realize that people like the people I was just with, Amish farmers, could be greatly affected by GMOs because it seems from the Percy Schmeiser story that they can contaminate other farmers that are maybe growing organic or that are not opting for Monsanto's system of farming. However, most of the farmers with their limited education in the legal system and stuff like that have had to knuckle under to Monsanto's pressures and have been forced, basically, to use genetically modified organisms in their farming practices. Everything from canola, like we mentioned, to corn, to I think they tried tomatoes and they were rejected in the market. And so they stopped planting the GMO tomatoes. However, from what I understand, there's still these GMOs floating around, and there's still tomatoes that are coming up from past experimentation with the GMOs that have ended up resulting in some actually pretty frightening tomato plants that look. That I saw a picture just the other day of a tomato that someone had bought at the store, and they took it home, and the tomato had actually started growing little sprouts of something out from the skin of the tomato. And as far as I know, because people didn't enjoy the flavor or the texture of the genetically modified tomatoes, they weren't selling, so they stopped using GMO tomatoes. However, out there in the vastness of nature, some of their experimenting seems to still be raging about and causing, wreaking a little bit havoc. So yeah, so that's kind of how I see that this genetically modifying of foods is actually a greater disruptive technology than even the internet, because it could literally affect every single person on the planet. Because the thing is, not all of us have to use the internet. Actually, none of us have to use the internet, but not all of us choose to use the internet or are capable of using the internet in our community or where we live or what we do. However, every single person and animal on this planet has to eat. We all eat. And a lot of the food that we eat has been disrupted by this technology. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Larry. I'm going to look for that picture. Do you want to give some opening comments and thoughts about GMOs as a disruptive technology?
Yeah, sure. I guess the first time I learned about GMOs was I think it was the same tomato thing, the tomato story, and somebody told me, yeah, somebody figured out how to put things into a fish. It was a fish part, like a DNA part from fish. They put into growing a tomato so that the tomatoes wouldn't go bad or would ripen something or something like that. And I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. that means you'll be able to buy tomatoes and they'll keep a lot longer. I thought that's really cool. And I talked to some other. Since then, I've talked to farmers that grow all sorts of stuff, and they have been telling me that they have technology now. I can't remember what the name of the company is that has this technology, but this farmer was actually telling me that they'll be able to make corn on the cob, where the cob is like 3 feet long. And I heard that 3 feet long and something like a foot in diameter. And I thought that sounded like Jack and the Beanstalk sort of craziness. And yeah, I just a kernel of corn would be probably like the size of an apple. So I thought that was pretty bizarre. And then I noticed myself that there were a lot of things about GMOs that a lot of people were complaining about on the internet and in the newspapers, and that was along the lines of, are they really good for you? And so I noticed that for a long time, like when I was a kid, I've always been a big fan of bananas. Like banana is one of my favorite fruits. And when I was a kid, I used to eat them all the time, and I was always sure that, okay, well, you got to eat I wanted to eat my banana before it got any of that black stuff on, because I didn't like the black stuff. However, when I was a kid, the bananas showed up, and they weren't green. They were never green. They were always yellow. Maybe they had a little bit of green, but generally they were yellow and black. And you wanted to eat your banana before it got black on the yellow peel. Anyways, nowadays you can go to the store and they sell bananas that are totally green, and they sell bananas that are totally yellow. And I thought something I noticed, that I thought I was developing an allergy, because when I ate, I don't know if this is real GMO stuff, but I imagine it's got something to do with it. But I noticed that I could eat a yellow banana, a normal looking banana, but these bananas would stay good for a lot longer. And so I thought, well, these aren't the same bananas as I ate when I was little. These are different bananas. And I noticed when I ate them, the the seeds on the inside of the banana, they weren't black anymore. And so I thought, well, this has got to be a different type of banana, because the seeds aren't black the way they were when I was a kid. And the flesh of the banana was all white. That all looked normal. But here's the big thing. Whenever I ate one of these bananas, my mouth would get all irritated on the inside. And it actually felt like my mouth was hot and burning. And I had this weird itchy sensation on the back of my throat and on the roof of my mouth. And so, and after I ate the banana, my stomach was kind of upset. And I thought, this is crazy, this must be a different one of these genetically modified bananas or whatever. And so I stopped eating bananas. I stopped eating bananas for a long time because I had this reaction, and I thought, oh, well, I guess I'm allergic to bananas. And then I heard about this place that had organic vegetables. Sorry, there's mosquitoes in here. We got lots of mosquitoes up in Alberta right now. They're attacking. But anyway, so I went to this organic store, and they had bananas there, and I was talking to someone, one of the women that was running her, and I was telling her about my problems eating bananas. And she told me, well, did you know that a lot of bananas, she said the bananas I was eating were probably, or not, they weren't genetically modified, but she said they were probably treated, and that in the tropical areas where they grow bananas, rather than risk the bananas going bad, they pick them when they ship them. They pick them when they're not quite ripe yet, and then they put them into this chemical that preserves it. And she told me that this chemical is actually capable of preserving the bananas for up to 2 years. And I said, what? You know, from being a kid and knowing that bananas went bad really fast, that's nature. That's the way God intended fruit to be. So you had to eat it or else it was going to go bad. And that's as simple as it was. Now, if they treat these fruits and vegetables with some kind of chemicals so that they don't go bad, or if they mess with the genetic structure of the fruits and vegetables, I don't think we're eating the foods that God's kind of provided for us to eat. We're now eating something that is more man-made. And I don't think that's a good idea, because that it's almost, to me, almost like cannibalism, because if man's making some kind of food for you to eat, it's coming from man, it's not coming from nature. Anyways, that's kind of the way I look at it. But to make a long story a little shorter, after talking to this woman about the genetic bananas and stuff, she said, well, try these bananas and let me know what they're like, because she told me these bananas are very much like the bananas you ate when you were a kid. Anyways, I took the bananas home and I was really hesitant. I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this, because I remember eating my last banana and getting really sick in the stomach. But I ate it, I took a bite, and I chewed it for a while. I chewed it for a little while. And the first thing I noticed is when I bit it, the seeds in the banana, they were black. And right at that point, I had a more confident feeling that I was eating, yep, a God-made fruit, and not something that was made in the laboratory. And so, sure enough, I ate it. I chewed it a long time, My mouth felt great. I swallowed it. I ate the whole banana. In fact, I think I ate 4 of them, and I felt great. My stomach wasn't upset or anything. And so since that day, and this must be, oh wow, this has got to be about 15 years ago. Since that day, I can now go back to eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, because since the banana thing happened, and I was made sick, other fruits and vegetables like pineapples and strawberries, they also must have been messed with by man, because I wasn't able to eat those either. That were the standard stuff in the vegetable department, fruits and vegetables department. However, if I went back to this store, and I thought it might have been a psychosomatic thing going on in my head with all this, but it's not, because when I went back to this organic store and ate I ate the fruits and vegetables that they sold, I had no problem. Everything was really delicious, and so that's the way I see genetically modified organisms. They are genetically modified organisms, or GMOs as they call them. They're not really food. They are a food, or a food-based thing that man has altered, and so it's not really food anymore. It's not processed. However, it's not really, to me, in my opinion, it's not really a food. And so, yeah, I just kind of got right out of that whole grocery store stuff. Like when you think about a banana sitting on a shelf for over a year, that's not right. You know, God made these fruits and vegetables to go bad for a reason, so let's not mess with it. And sure enough, you go to stores and you can buy bananas and apples and oranges too. Big problems with a lot of apples, big problems with oranges. Just when I ate an orange, I'd get burning in my stomach. But as long as I eat the organic stuff, I don't have a problem. So with the disruption for myself, this disruption of technology is actually not so much disruption, it's disruption of Mother Nature, and it's almost the disruption of my health because it's to me when I go shopping, I avoid the regular fruits and vegetables as if they are poisoned, and I've just become like I'm almost like a canary in a coal mine when it comes to fruits and vegetables. I can pretty much eat anything that's a fruit or a vegetable, and just by the reaction in my mouth, I can tell you whether it's genetically modified or if it's organic or has been treated. Like I'm just that sensitive to those kind of things. So yeah, the genetically modified stuff, I think it's great. However, I don't know how it's going to affect, it can feed more people. I just don't know how it's going to affect the general problem or general population, whether we're going to have more cases of diabetes or other weird diseases crop up. Because, if you're not eating food that's provided by the earth and God and the sun and you're eating stuff that's from a laboratory, are you getting what your body really needs to survive, or are you putting plastic in your body?
I love it. I very, very, very seldom on these hangouts. I actually am a little more knowledgeable about the topic than Larry, and this is one of those times. You don't know, you said, if there's going to be more diabetes or more of these weird diseases, and there totally is, like celiac disease, all these peanut allergies, all of these diabetes in children. That stuff never existed before GMOs. So I think that it's pretty probably a link there. Also, I know I just want to make a little clarification with the organics and the GMOs. The organic food is cheaper to produce. However, because of government regulation and because of the inspection services that are required to certify that food as being organic, it adds to the cost and makes it more expensive. It's just crazy. It's unbelievable to me that they're able to get away with doing that to these poor organic farmers. I shouldn't say poor, but they just make it so difficult for them, and yet at the same time they make it so easy for these GMO producers because they have a lot of money to bully their way around the marketplace. There was another film that I'd love it if you all would check out called Life According to Monsanto. And it really sheds a lot of light on how much these big companies throw their weight around with excuse me, with the way that they work around these laws and regulations that are supposed to be there to protect people from the onset of diseases and stuff. In that film, Life According to Monsanto, I'm not sure if it's available on YouTube, but I seen it on television, I believe, actually, at a friend's place. And they show how lawyers for Monsanto they move in to become administrators at the FDA, and then they leave the FDA, and then they go to be the CEO at Monsanto, and then they go back to consulting for the FDA, and then they go back to handling legal issues. And there was an example of like 3 or 4 different individuals that had gone back and forth between Monsanto's legal team and legal department to the FDA's administration. And so yeah, that is definitely a big, big conflict of interest in my mind. And also, when you add on top of that, on top of GMOs, there's the issue of all the preservatives, like you talked about. like probably those bananas that you were consuming were GMO, but at the time the lady was telling you about the treatment to preserve them. That uh, because we didn't know that GMOs were being introduced into the food supply and into our supermarkets. They somehow were able, well, because they had the same people on the legal team for the companies developing these foods as were working at the FDA, it wasn't brought to public awareness that this was actually going on right away. Apparently, genetically modified corn has been in the food supply for like over a decade, and people have only really been aware of it or talking about it with the advent of these films that I mentioned, the Food Inc. and the World According to Monsanto. And there's a couple other really great documentaries that talk about this in a lot more detail. And yeah, there's, on top of the actual genetic modification of the foods, there's also issues that we're dealing with as far as, like you say, the preservatives. And then also there was a study done that showed that there was not as much, but there was a traceable and noticeable level of heavy metals in organic foods. It was less than the non-organic foods, however, it's still there because apparently the plants pull these toxins out of the soil as they grow. And because of some of the old practices of factories not using scrubbers like in the coal burning factories, and not just dumping pollutants into the water and stuff like that, the soil has become so contaminated that even the organic farmers are having toxins being brought from the soil into the plants. So it's more than just the issue of genetically modifying the foods. There's also elements of other chemicals and, yeah, unnatural practices that are going on farms all over the globe. And I know in India there was people in one of those films that was talking about there was farmers actually committing suicide because Monsanto kind of bullied their way in there and said, listen, you have to buy our seed, we'll give you a loan to buy the seed, and then when flooding conditions or drought conditions or whatever it may be made it so that they didn't get the harvest that would pay back these loans, these farmers were in debt, and they were so stressed out about it that they actually committed suicide. And there's a lot of stories like that. Just really, really sad stuff. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here because I did find this photo that I was looking at earlier. So hopefully that'll work out. We'll go to the screen. And can you see my screen, Larry? You have to unmute yourself and let me know. Can you see the picture? Oh, okay, here it comes. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
So this isn't the one that I seen earlier, but I thought, oh, that looks scary. But this is what I saw earlier today, was this photo. And then, yeah, there's, it says, last week, here, I'll just read it. Last week, Redditor Serena I can't pronounce her name. She posted these pictures of a tomato seedling sprouted from inside of a tomato fruit that had been forgotten on a kitchen. Anyway, and so there's some more pictures here.
Is that actually possible?
It doesn't seem possible, but I wouldn't be surprised because of what they have done with some of these foods. Look at all these pictures. Like, obviously, they could Photoshop one or two of these pictures, but I don't really think that it's very likely that someone would go through all the.
So that's a tomato plant growing out of a tomato.
I don't think it would. I don't think someone would take all the trouble to Photoshop that many pictures. So the odds are is that it is legitimate. And from what I understand, yeah, the things that they've tried. Well, it's not just with produce. If you look at the way that they've done some cloning in the past with animals that we use that are used in our food supply, like there was a two-headed goat or something that they put together. So to me, if they can put together a two-headed goat, it's not surprising that they would create a tomato that had sprouts growing out of it. And like I think that goat didn't live very long. It was like really cruel thing that they even would experiment with stuff like that. But whatever. That's kind of
I've seen
besides the
two-headed
point.
people.
Well, yeah, but that's nature making a mistake. Nature does make mistakes. However, when people add their 2 cents in, people are innately flawed, and I think as a species we tend to make more mistakes than nature does. Well, maybe not more, but anyway, nothing's flawless or foolproof in this world other than the fact that it exists. But anyway, keep going on with this whole thing. I know that when there's been a lot of really mythical misinformation that has been put out there to people. Example I think of is that um, the way that they were able to bring these foods to the marketplace was to say that they were substantially equal to non-genetically modified produce. Well, I don't understand how you can call something equal when in the actual name of it you say modified. To me, if it's been modified, it's no longer equal. It's not like, so I don't understand how legally they can use that language to get away with putting this stuff in our food supply. And also, something else that I wanted to talk about in regards to genetically modified organisms is that, oh, what was it? Sorry, I had a little brain fart. I got interrupted by this lady screaming at me. I'm in Ohio, just so you know, I'm not at home. So yeah, there's other people here where I've got in the hotel lobby. The internet access seems a lot better than up in the room, so came down here, and maybe I should have stayed up there and risked the cutting out instead of having to hear all these doors closing and people making noise. Anyway, yeah, so what I wanted to discuss about genetically modified organisms was that they are really unpredictable from, like, they've experimented with them and not to the length of time that would be required to really know what the long-term effects are. Like some of the laboratory studies were really short and really didn't give an indication of what the future would hold with these. I know with clinical studies for medicines and stuff like that, they have a much higher standard, or at least they used to have a higher standard. Now I think it's all kind of been watered down. For everything the FDA does, I think is watered down. And the FDA is an organization. People trust and believe that it is an organization that is protecting people from harmful products. However, in my view, from everything that I've learned and studied on this subject, is that they are more interested in the profits of the large companies that support them and support government than they are in actual safety from and there's a lot of examples of that. If you look at there was I forget the name of it, but there was like a medication that they were giving people for high cholesterol, and people died. They had heart attacks that were brought on by this medication that was meant to lower their cholesterol, which, you know, high cholesterol is a lot less of an issue than heart failure. So, and they had to recall that, and that's only one example. There's been a lot of medications that the FDA has approved and then recalled, and then with these genetically modified foods, I don't think that they've studied enough on what the long-term effects are going to be or have been, and I think that we are starting to see those effects with things like celiac disease, and like I mentioned, the peanut allergies and other food allergies that are popping up in our children. Personally, I believe that there may very well be a link to autism that has to do with genetically modified foods. I know a lot of people are strong believers that it's vaccines, but I think that all of these things kind of compile, and in our children, there's a compounded effect. So a child that's been overly vaccinated, and then on top of it, you add these organically modified organisms into their belly, and I think and then all the toxins in the environment. I personally think autism is it is a spectrum disease, so I think that the spectrum has to do with all of these different elements that are all compounding in these little bodies that aren't able to manage. And so, yeah, I remembered what I was trying to talk about before, and that was I kind of lost my train of thought there a little bit, get distracted with people walking around and stuff. But what I wanted to talk about before was the labeling issue. I mentioned that there's a lot of propaganda and myths around genetically modified organisms, and one of the big ones has to do with the labeling. And to me, if these foods were like really safe and good for us, like they want us to believe that they are, then there shouldn't be a problem putting a label on it. The problem for the companies is that in polls, people have indicated that a majority of people, if it was labeled on there that this product contains GMOs, that people wouldn't buy it. So right away, the companies already know that, okay, we don't want to put the label on there. And from what I understand is that if they did pass labeling laws, most companies would stop using GMOs altogether, because they already are aware, based on these polls, that it would hurt their bottom line and their sales would plummet if these foods were modified. So from what I understand, is what they did in California, they had a proposition to label genetically modified foods, and it failed. People did not vote for it. And apparently the reason why it wasn't voted for is because these food companies did a massive, massive propaganda campaign where they basically told everybody that if this goes through, and we're gonna have to pay all this money to repackage all our food so that we can put these labels on, and it's going to cost all this money, and we're going to have to pass on that cost to you, and food prices are going to skyrocket, and there's going to be like big problem for everybody, da 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 da. And so they've been able to successfully hold back any labeling, as far as which is really sad, because people should have the right to know whether or not. But what you can do is you can look up on the internet how what foods have been genetically modified, because I know that there's some produce that they haven't tried experimenting with it yet, and then there's other produce where they have done. So if you just stay away from those food items, then you'll know for sure.
What items?
Yeah, I'd have to look up the list. So I know that there's a list of all of the foods that they have thus far genetically modified, and then it's not everything. Like the definitely corn and soy, cotton. Yeah, there's a list. There's not that many. Like they haven't gone full force with this, because they're kind of doing a mass experiment with the population as a whole of what it will do. And then certain, from what I understand, certain fruits and vegetables are more delicate, so they're not able to. They probably are trying to genetically modify things like peaches. I think apples have been genetically modified, but they probably are trying to genetically modify things like peaches and grapes and stuff like that. And obviously they haven't been able to perfect it. In order to make a saleable product, or they probably throw that on the market too.
Well, I know I've had problems with peaches too in the past, and the
That's
same.
probably that's probably to do with the preservatives, like you said before. And there's a lot of issues going on with our food, and GMO is just one of them. Like we could have a whole nother hangout talking about the preservatives that they add to our food, and they've been doing that for a much longer time than they've actually been genetically modifying foods. Like I think that the genetically modified foods in the marketplace has only really been for about 5 years or so, but
Okay,
preservatives go back like 20 years.
okay. Well, if they're putting preservatives into food, doesn't that genetically modify them?
No, not specifically, because the genetic modification is done in a lab, and then the preservatives are like a chemical that's added to organically grown produce after the fact, and then it makes it so when they add the chemical preservatives, it's no longer can be considered organic. However, it's also not necessarily genetically modified. And then to me, the whole thing with the labeling, if it was good for us, why wouldn't they put the labels in on there? Like obviously they, and also I've seen that there's been like some studies that have been buried and covered up. I don't know if this is true for sure, do the research yourself. But what I've heard is that there was some studies done that actually showed that there was adverse effects from people eating these genetically modified foods, and and maybe it wasn't in people. I think it was actually a study done in mice or rats where they found that the fertility of these animals plummeted when they were given these genetically modified foods. So basically, it rendered them almost sterile within
Yeah,
2 generations or something like that, and they totally have tried to hide that from public knowledge. If you
yeah.
don't
I
look for the information, it's not on the news.
Yeah, I know that in Canada we eat a lot of preserved foods just because our winters are so long that we wouldn't survive because unless we had preserved foods because stuff like canned peaches and pears have always been popular in Canada for the winter months. I remember as a kid you had that fruit cocktail, those kind of things. But those are preservatives being added to natural foods, so it's not really genetically modified. However, preservatives are
No. Canned foods do not necessarily now, but canned foods don't necessarily have preservatives in them. The actual act of putting it in the can is what preserves it. However, I think nowadays more and more they are adding chemical preservatives to
right.
what's in the can, but the act of canning it actually preserves it. So just to clarify that. You have to read the label. The label will tell you whether there's preservatives in it or not, because the act of canning it is preserving it. And you don't, but there's a whole nother level of preserving food, which is using chemicals, which makes it possible for us to purchase like bananas all year round, or like apples and stuff
Right.
all year round. Whereas in the past, come December, there was no option to buy apples. It was only your only option was canned, and then a lot of the seasonal fruits were only available certain times of the years, right? And whereas now, in the global marketplace, and with the advent of chemical preservatives, we can get bananas all year round. We can get a lot of fruits and vegetables like any time of the year in the dead of winter. Whereas in years gone by, the only option would have been to buy the canned version. So there's a difference there. Just to clarify for people that read the label on the can, and it will tell you if it's just peaches and syrup water, then there's no preservative in it, and the act of canning it preserves it. But it'll say some weird stuff that you don't know what it is, and that's probably a
Yeah,
chemical preservative.
I think they used to use some kind of syrup in a lot of fruit preserved cans, and then you notice they started using the juice of the. I think they used pear juice in peaches, And so they went from using syrups to more of using um, the fruit juices themselves. And then I've also noticed now, I don't know how they do it, but they put fruits into cans, and the only addition in the can with the fruits is water. So how the hell does that preserve something? I just find it amazing.
It's just like freezing it, but because it's sealed, as soon as you take air out of the equation, then it's not gonna spoil, right? Like
Yeah,
if you put
well,
it in the freezer, then there's no air acting on it because the air is too cold to act on the. And when it's in a
yeah,
can and it's sealed, there's no air. So it's like the
okay,
oxygen
okay.
oxidation and like rusting and oxygen is what causes the food to spoil. So if you
Yeah, because the only reason it's a little off topic, but I remember it in fall. My family was always. I remember the word blanching a lot of green beans and stuff, which I think was just putting the green beans in boiling water for a few minutes, so that it doesn't cook them, but you could then preserve them and freeze them. But they had to be blanched. But anyways, that's kind of off topic. Um, but yeah, nothing like that. I guess for myself personally, the GMOs, I might be eating GMOs, and I might be fine with it. It might just be the way some things are preserved. But I remember going to see a farmer, and he showed me what he was putting on his fields. And I remember the container. I think the company on the container was Monsanto. And I looked at the label of the ingredients on this tub. These 45, or we call them, I think, 20-pound pails in the plastic industry. And this is from my plastics experience working with silicons and polyurethanes. I looked at the ingredients on this barrel that they were putting on a field, and it had the same ingredients that we were using in the plastic manufacturing shop. Like, that's being put on a field. Well, I'm not sure what part.
into our water supply, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's a
Well,
little frightening.
I was trying to wrap my head around why is this stuff going on the field? Like, is it because with polyurethanes, it's sticky as snot, and you're putting that on a field probably because you don't want your seeds to blow away or something. But at the same time, these things are really poisonous
No,
in
I
a
don't. I
plastic
don't.
plant.
I don't think that they don't want their seeds. I know. Actually, I know that they spray to kill bugs. It's to kill bugs that eat the crops. It's not to keep stuff from blowing away. But yeah, that's a little off topic. I just wanted to before we close off, I just wanted to touch on one more thing. I've been talking about how there's a lot of myth and misinformation going on as far as GMOs are concerned in general. And one thing that I think is really important to discuss in regards to GMOs is the argument for them. The argument for GMOs is that, oh, there's starving kids in Africa and that we need to increase our crop yields so that we can feed everybody. Well, as far as I can tell, years after GMOs are in the marketplace, there's still kids that are starving in Africa and other places in the world, and and to me, it's ridiculous because long before GMOs or preservatives existed, the amount of food that is wasted and thrown away in North America could feed the globe for years and years to come. And this whole food industry has got so many people brainwashed into believing that there's not enough food out there to feed everybody. And that has never, ever in the history of the world been true. That has never been true. There's an abundance of food. There's more than enough, way more than enough for every person that lives on this planet. And they say, oh, overpopulation, it's too populated, we
It's
can't
just
feed all those people. That is
shipping
a
it to them.
complete, it's a
Is it?
complete Myth. It's a total myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem has never, ever, ever been the
Yeah.
ability to produce food or the amount of food that exists. It has always been the distribution.
Yeah.
Because because people are living in places where they are in the place where they live, they may not be able to produce the food that they need, but where we live, we produce hundreds times more than we could ever eat. And there's been stories of train cars full of grain dumped into the ocean because it was going to spoil anyway. They had to make room in the bin for the new crop of grain, and nobody out there had the wherewithal to say, "Hey, don't dump that in the ocean. My company is going to take some of our profit, and we're going to put it towards shipping that somewhere where they can use it." And so,
Oh
and
yeah.
even if you look around, almost any restaurant on any given day, when I used to waitress many years ago. When I would clear those tables, I would say half of the food that was served went into the trash bin after it
Hmm.
was removed from the tables. And so if, as a culture in North America where we have an abundance of food, if we all cut back, if we all started initiatives to shift the food that we're not eating to places that need it, that we wouldn't have a problem. That it just wouldn't exist. And I point out a lot because I gave up on the cosmetic industry. I don't pay for hair products or get my hair done. I do buy shampoo and wash my hair, but I don't buy these other that spray this on your hair, or go to the salon or anything like that. And if every other woman on this planet did that, the money that you would save from um, cutting out on the silliness of, to me anyway, I know to a lot of women it's really, I gotta look good, but you know what, honey? Yeah, you already are beautiful without that, all that junk. It's the
Okay.
societal brainwashing that has led you to believe that you need that stuff. But if we as women all rejected those personal care products that are really kind of senseless in my mind, that's $1 billion industry. We could easily take that money and feed every child that needs to eat on this planet easily.
Okay. Yeah. Getting back to the GMO thing, um, you I don't know if I mentioned to you, but there is also a new company that's part of the top 50 disruptive companies on the MIT website, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. One of these companies is actually doing what Monsanto is doing. However, they figured out how to do it organically without using chemicals. I don't remember the name of the company, but they are genetically modifying stuff, but doing it in an organic way. And I read this little blurb on this company. I haven't researched it a lot. I forgot to do it for this hangout. I wanted to do it for this hangout, but it totally slipped my mind. But if you go to that MIT website for the top 50 disruptive companies, not technologies, but companies, that company is listed in 2014. So they're brand new. And I got a funny feeling that that company might be related to, I can't remember her name, but there's a woman in India. Do you know the woman I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember her name either. But she's in both of those documentaries that I
Oh,
mentioned,
good.
the Food Inc. and The World According to Monsanto. She's a huge advocate for seeds and having saving seeds and having heirloom seeds and having a legacy that's worth leaving our children. Yeah, she's awesome. She's a doctor, I believe, of some type.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
in
so
India. Yeah.
just so people know that the GMOs, we all know, or maybe people don't realize this, but in Germany there is no GMOs, and like we went there for a trade show, and I've got to bring it in. King Sunshine Solar Systems. How we relate this to GMOs is that we took our prototype to Germany for the intersolar. yeah, Intersolar 2012. And while we were there, because we were in Munich, I'd never been to Europe, and I noticed that when we went somewhere to eat, and I thought, boy, this food tastes familiar. Why is that? And I was thinking about it and thinking about it. I don't know if you remember this, but it dawned on me, this is the way food used to taste in Canada. And it completely blew my mind. And so I think I was talking to some of the people there, or I did some research on the internet, and that's where I made the discovery that there was no GMOs allowed in Europe. And then I thought to myself, why? Why is that? You know, why are the Germans doing all this fascinating stuff with mixing? They had I don't know if you remember, we were walking by some of the crops grow right in the cities and towns, and I remember seeing poppies growing in the same seed field as as barley. And then I found out later from a farmer here in Canada. He said, "Well, that's what we used to do to keep the bugs down because certain bugs were attracted to the poppies, and certain bugs were attracted to the barley, but these bugs didn't get along and they killed each other." And I thought, wow, uh, do we actually need GMOs? Do we actually need insecticides? Or do we actually have to start using our minds and start thinking and stop thinking about money and start thinking about health? And I think that's really important. So, anyways, that's my little 2 cents worth for the end of this hangout. But yeah, it's a real eye opener to go if you're Canadian and you're in your
Well,
50s, 60s to go to Germany and have a bite in wherever Bavaria or Munich, and you'll experience what I'm talking about. And when you come back home, you'll go, "What the hell are we doing in our country? What are we doing? What are we doing? You know, it doesn't make sense." So, anyways, it's just a very big learning experience for me. Anyhow, that's
yeah,
all I'm going to
well,
say.
the Europeans have a much, much longer history than us, so they are more cautious when it comes to these things. I think that they have like a bit of wisdom that we lack here because of their long history. Um, so yeah, and I've kind of experienced that too this week, being with Amish people and eating with the Amish. Yeah, their food's quite organic. I don't know if there's any contamination or anything that has gone on with their food, but they use really, really rudimentary farming methods. So and food tasted amazing, and I'm quite sure that there's no spraying of pesticides or herbicides or any of that kind of stuff going on where I was this week. And however, at some point, this genetically modified stuff could even affect their pristine, organic, and natural food that they produce and eat. So,
Oh,
uh,
that just sorry to interrupt. That reminded me. This company I was talking about on that the 50 disruptive companies for 2014, GMOs. It wasn't so much. It's not GMOs. It's naturally. They figured out a way to naturally increase yields
right.
of crops, and that's what I think GMOs is all about: is to increase the yields.
That's
So I
not
just wanted to
that's not
correct
really
myself.
what it's all about. I don't think that that is what they would like everyone to believe, that
Yeah, well, I
they're
just
going
wanted
to
to
feed
correct
the
what I was
world
saying
with
there.
GMOs. They're going to be able to feed the world with GMOs, which is bogus. Totally bogus argument in their favor. There, I don't think there's really any real. Well, I have a hard time seeing any positive to having or consuming GMOs and even having them around. It seems really scary to me. Uh, but with that, I've got to catch a plane tomorrow, so I'm going to go get some sleep. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and hope that you all have a great morning, day, night, wherever you are in the world. And did you have any other closing thoughts, Larry? No?
No,
Okay.
sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to correct what I had said earlier about this other
Oh, well,
company.
it's a huge, huge topic, and yeah, let's do another hangout, and we'll do some research on exactly what they're doing, and we can bring forth that company's disruptive technology on another one of these hangouts in the future. But this is a
Yeah,
big, big topic, and there's a lot
yeah.
of
I was going to say that I was just thinking while this hangout was proceeding that what I'd like to do is maybe revisit some of the topics that we discussed over the past. What number is this one now?
31. I think
31.
I sent it out as 28, but it's actually 31.
Okay. Well, after we might we've been talking about doing is inviting some people that are really in the know on some of these topics and have them put their input in. So I think we might be end up doing that, reviewing some of our past disruptive technologies and having some of these people that are actually in the business. And if they're in the business
Yeah,
listening to us and thinking, you guys are idiots, I know what I'm doing. I'm like,
probably.
yeah, and they should contact us, let us know that they're experts, and then we'll revisit that whatever disruptive technology that they were listening to, that they made the discovery that said, yeah, I should get
Yeah,
on this.
especially this topic could be revisited, and it's a big, big topic. There's a lot of different stuff going on with it, and we've barely scratched the surface. And it's pretty interesting to absolutely, as I was saying at the beginning, everybody on the planet has to eat. So this affects all of us. And so
Yeah,
definitely this and many, many other of the topics that we've had in regards to disruptive technology. It's a 20,000 part series. So, you know, there will be room to come back to this and hopefully bring on some input from industry leaders and experts that have more knowledge and expertise on the subject than we do, because we're actually involved in solar power as our business, but however, we really enjoy keeping abreast of everything that's going on with all the other companies and all the other changes and how the marketplace shifts and these different technologies that are affecting all of that, and relating it back uh, to our own disruptive technology that we're trying to bring to
yeah,
the marketplace. So, like
yeah.
our big goal is to get new ideas out there and to help people that have a disruptive technology and maybe they're not sure about going about things like setting up their corporation or doing a business plan or getting patents, as well as discussing all these other different disruptive technologies that are already in the marketplace or that are coming up.
Yeah, and I think if we do revisit this GMO topic, if we could get a representative from the Monsanto company and a representative from this new company on the top 50 list that I was talking about that's increasing yields organically, have them come on and join the discussion and let
And watch the sparks fly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
that would be a disruptive hangout.
Yeah, there we go. That'd be entertaining for people. But yeah, with that, I gotta get to bed. I gotta pack my bag and get ready to head on home. I'm looking forward to it. Ohio's been really, really cool, but yeah, I miss the horses that I already know. I got to meet some new ones, but I'm missing the ones that I left behind. So I don't think we'll be able to do this tomorrow because I'll be traveling. So my flight gets in pretty late. I think it's past, and even if it is in time to proceed with the hangout, I'm pretty sure I'll probably be too tired. So we'll convene again Sunday night, I guess. So I'll see you then, Larry.
Okie dokie.
All right,
Have a
everybody,
safe flight.
make it a great day. And if I don't see you in the future, I will see you out in the pasture.
Peace.
Actually, tomorrow I'll be on an airplane, not in the pasture, but by Monday morning I'll be back out in the pasture. So in the meantime, I just want everybody out there to know that I am a firm believer that in this life, anybody can be, do, and have anything that they want. Or we can have everything we want. And I'm choosing everything, and I hope you will too, because you can. Have a great day, night, morning, everybody.